Welcome to the NGP Trials and Tribulations series. I'm here with Tim Dutta, that runs the official flight partner of NGP, which is the Dutta Corp. But more than that, I would say Tim is such a wealth of knowledge of not only the sport of show jumping, but everything related to equestrian sport. And he's seen it evolve in incredible ways for over how long have you been?
I started in 1984. It's a long time.
So we like to see the evolution of the sport from then to now, and I think that there's anybody that has a great viewpoint on where the sport has been and where it's going, it's Tim. So very excited to have you here.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here and spend some time with you. And it's a very exciting moment, what you and your partners have done with NGP, specifically to see the next talent and hopefully our Olympic medalists coming out of this program.
No, we really hope so. It's as we've really peeled back a layer on this, I think that we've had so many talented riders that have come to us here, and I'm excited to really see how this is continuing to progress. And now, we're at a really exciting point that you're helping us with.
Well, it's anyways, when talent meets opportunity and opportunity gives them a little bit of luck and success, that's when we see the talent develop. And it's amazing. We as a country need that. I think we are in a crossroad of success. We've got amazing senior riders with Kent, McLean, Laura, Lily. Lily would be the next generation of superstar, and quite a few Lilies around. But that's what we need to have 12 to 16 of these riders at the top level, encompassing the world. The world is no longer round, it's flat. Today, you see a horse compete in Shanghai, next day in Abu Dhabi, and third day in Ocala and Fontaine, Mexico. It's just the way the world works.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing there. So when we started NGP, the idea behind this was how can we grow the sport and support riders in the quest for them to become athletes. And I say when my first founding thought is that I used to be able to have a business to support my riding, and now I feel like you have a business to support your business there. And so I think that's where we started. And then, say the next step is, okay, so how do we really grow this sport? And it comes from the support of, what supports an athlete. You look in other sports there, there's the owner, there's the general manager, there's the coach, there's the entire structure behind them there. And so we took one step back and said, we're starting this, if we need to if our goal is to create a positive ownership experience, that starts with a positive investment experience. What's amazing for me as we really dove into that, Bear, is you see the volume of courses and the quality of courses that are moving around the world. And we see inside the industry the values that these horses are trading at there. But there's never been any data that's ever been captured on the actual sport horse market there. How have you seen the market evolve over the years there, not only just to the States, but what you're seeing on global level?
Well, first of all, the breeding of the horses have changed. Europe is the market leader for producing top sport horses in the world of show jumping. They have, the last 10 years, the breeding has evolved to match the sport. Our course designers have been extremely well educated. They have brought the sport to a new level. They're asking the different riding challenges. They're building courses fairer for the horses, but more technically difficult. So you want a horse with a lot of blood, a lot of endurance, careful, smart. They have to be electric, but yet have relaxation.
Yeah.
And the riding has gone. Usually you see every Olympic cycle, every 4-year cycle, we see better riding, better sport, better horses. The last 2 or 3 Olympic cycles since London, the sport has really changed. The step has changed to be much more technical. It rewards outstanding animals with a lot of scope, but carefulness without losing their mind. They have to be sharp. They have to pay attention, but yet they cannot be dull. The environment is much more challenging. and the riding is so much better. You know, you see these riders, and some of the riders were there in 2012, but their riding has changed.
No, they're
You
pushing
know,
forward.
the management has changed. Our veterinary science has changed. Our farriers have changed. How we ship horses around the world has changed. I think how our feeding program has changed. And I think this is amazing that where the sport is going. And I think the sport is on a very fast track to even get better and bigger.
We were just talking before it came on about some of the with the PJL and some and where the sport is going, some of the new opportunities for riders there. And I think it's amazing to see the growth of the sport and where it's going. And I think one thing though that I'm not lost on the fact there is that the demand is growing for the sport. You know, we talked about how but it was an interesting point when the North American Riders Group started, the amount of FEI shows that they had just in North America, and how I think that there was not an FEI show between it was at the end of Wellington, it was the American Invitational, and then to the Hampton Classic, and you see where we come, since then how this has become number one as a year-round sport, but then on a global level, and so and you see the demand going, but now we go back to that what we are, the sport itself there, it does not rely upon an assembly line where they can just ramp up production as demand increases there. But we're going back to breeders and having to breed generations of horses, and how the horse that we see for today's sport was, that horse was an embryo 12 years ago. And to see, so it's a really amazing parallel that really, where value is created in that, but also, where the real needs are to support the initiative going forward.
Absolutely. It's remarkable how the sport has changed, how the professionals are changing, how the business model has changed. And I think the young professionals have to learn no longer just riding or jumping a jump, but managing themselves, marketing, managing their customers, having the funding. The horses have become much more expensive because the quality is expensive. But the demand, like you said, before it was a European and an America sport.
Mhm.
Today it's a world sport. You have Asia very much in the forefront. I think it's exploding.
Yeah.
The Middle East, the sport has really taken over with some great management. Saudi Arabia spending a lot of money, or Dubai, Oman, Bahrain, Doha, Qatar. So that's very lively. Their five-star events are as good as our five-star events of
Yeah.
the Europeans. And then don't forget China and India. I mean, India has got such wealth, such folks that are learning and they love horses. And it's just a question of time that they're going to catch up, yeah, with the rest of us. And it's through an Olympic cycle. We've got LA in front of us. Right after that, we go to Australia. And if the way the world is working, I think the next Olympics after Brisbane is going to be somewhere in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings a lot of dreams,
Yeah.
and activity to go forward.
And it's not just the Olympic courses, but it's the whole pipeline of the dream and how the dream is built and the production of those riders that
Ken Farrington is made in the riding school when they're 5, 6 years old,
Yeah.
getting the bug. And a Lily is made that way, where they just go and ask their parents to go to learn to ride. And a kind pony makes them fall in love with the sport.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. No, you talk about the global demand for it there. And so I think that the supply is not necessarily growing, but the demand is growing.
Yes, because it's becoming a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Parents seeing horses is a good thing.
Yeah.
It teaches young kids responsibility.
Mhm.
It's not just themselves and their phone. It gets them out of their house. It gets them to exercise. It gives them time management, that they have to do sport. And it's an elitist sport. So you meet like-minded folks. Parents meet new friends. Kids become friends, hopefully lifelong friends along the world. And it's not for everyone. Some people who, they go through university and then they get a job. It's just life changes. But most of them, if you have a bug,
Mhm.
and it's at high school level,
Yeah.
you're not leaving town.
No.
And that's what we want. And we want the next generation.
Yeah.
As you call the next generation of professionals.
Yeah.
We need that. It's the next lilies coming through the pipeline.
Yeah. No, you're spot that's where this was really founded there, is that, is I sit with so many riders that will come and say, "I love this sport. I wanna make a career out of this here," but they're trying to figure out how to climb that ladder, and I think it's very independent of the financial backgrounds of the families, because I think that you'll see if you're a parent, and I'm learning this now with our kids, if you have a kid that really love something there, you want to try to get them the best training that you can get them. In this case, it's the best horses you can,
Yeah,
with the belief that if they can become good enough at something, that they'll be able to make a career out of it. And I think that why we started NGP is the idea that it's not quite that simple in this sport, and
right.
especially if you're not a member of a legacy family and you're it's not where the name came from, but if you're a first generation rider in your family there, and just to really
It's a very difficult ladder to climb, but like I always say, if you want something bad enough,
yeah
you'll find a way to get it.
yeah
And I think, again, that's talent and opportunity, and they just need opportunity for the talent to develop. And sometimes work ethic is much more important than all the talent. If someone
yes
shows up and goes through the daily grind and dedicates themselves to learn a craft
yeah.
and the love of the horse, I think the success is theirs coming.
And we're less than a year old with MGP. I think this week we're betting our ninth horse there, which we're hopefully help us get it over to the States. But we've one of the things I've seen is we've had hundreds of riders to this point here reach out looking for a horse there. But what's the X factor of the individual? Are they staying on it there? Are they just looking for a handout, or are they showing us why they're really what sets them apart there? And so, and you mentioned, we talked about the global demand of the sport, and where we said, how can we really support the next generation of riders through an investment fund there, is that I find that, because what the needs are for horses is so specific these days, and that you can really have an explosive valuation on a horse happen in the space of one class or one horse show there, because you see what the horse is capable of. And what NGP is founded on is that real value is created in the horse rider match. And so now, if we can create an investment fund where we match investors to an incredible group of riders that have an incredibly talented group of riders, but we can, through our board, match those horses to the right rider for value can be created, whether it's for their own careers, to maybe have the horses secure in their behalf, or hopefully, I guess, or if not, to be sold to the outside. So taking that in, how do you see this global market here of how an investment fund can have a real place in this now, because there's the immediacy need of so many of these countries to have the horse for tomorrow.
I think you have really hit a nerve that was well needed. What an investment fund does, it it brings like-minded supporter of the sport, an investor or someone who loves horses, wants to support United States riders or riders of their choice to bring them to the next level, a sliver of investment, a multiple group of people would join a fund and have horses. And you're also reducing the risk factor. If someone went and bought a horse for X amount of dollars, that's it. They've spent that money. Whereas if you buy shares or units of multiple horses, your chance of being successful with that horse rider combination. And in this case, if a horse is not the perfect match for the rider, you have the ability of moving horses around inside the fund, matching the right horse to the right rider.
Yeah.
And just because it doesn't work with one rider, that doesn't mean the horse is bad or the rider is bad. It's like a marriage. Either it works or it doesn't work. And either you like someone or you don't. And that takes time. It cannot be just two rides that are married, you know.
Yeah.
And that's Fantasy Island. It does happen in Hollywood. But I think it's an amazing benefit. You have tax benefit. You have uh, benefit to go visit your horse in top level competition. Hopefully a dream is to a championship, whether it's a Pan American Games, whether it's an Olympic Games or World Championships, whether it's the World Cup finals for individuals who wants to do that. I think investing in shares in horses is a brilliant idea, where it's like a fractional ownership. It gives you all the ownership. But the most important thing that I see here is you don't have the daily, weekly, monthly cost if you were the owner.
Yeah.
Because buying the horse is the easy part. It's the bills that come every year.
Yes.
And I think that is amazing. And also, this fund is not an ever-ending fund. So there is a time and a place where the horse needs to move on, whether it is absorbed in-house by the rider or it is sold to a third party. And there's chance of making money or turning profit is greater than if you owned it yourself.
Yeah.
Because you don't fall in love with this entity. The asset has to be sold up to date.
Yeah. No, I think we're really, I think one of the things is that trying to create a timeline there, because we started this year. We said we went outside the industry. How do people view horses? It was high risk. Let's spread it through a portfolio. A lot of bills. Let's create a structure where riders have needs to get horses underneath them here. So how can we create a structure that we can get horses underneath them, and instead of getting bills back to the investors, get them dividends, and hopefully over time we're able to bring new people into the sport that way too, and grow the experience of people that are already inside of it there.
Yeah, going to support your horse and rider or your team NGP, whether it's your asset or your fund's asset, is the same. You belong to a fund, and I think to go see share success is interesting. Also, this sport brings us all over the world, whether we're going to Mexico or whether we're going to Calgary or whether we're going to Santa Anita or whether we're going to Palm Beach or the Hamptons. It's a new venue, new friends, old friends, camaraderie, getting together and rooting for one cause of success.
Yeah. Talking about dressage, and I maybe I'll put another layer in there of some of the other disciplines in there, but I know you've got a very close relationship to the sport of dressage, and we've had a lot of interest of individuals reaching out that could put a dressage fund together or have dressage horses included in an NGP fund. And I'm really excited about that idea because it goes back to now we're trying to create, talk about an elevated experience. You have, I'm partial on giving the Palm Beach example. You have Friday Night Lights and Saturday Night Lights, but it's on a global stage. But talking about dressage.
Absolutely. I think dressage is another part of the equestrian sport that is growing. It's an art. It's dressage people are little different than show jumpers. They are much more emotionally involved with a horse. I think it is high time that you look into it. I think it's an opportunity that is needed in this country. We definitely need multiple upper level horses, and the fund can go two ways. We can go buy made horses and produce match the riders, or uh, I've always been a fan of making horses. So you buy them, they're young, buy quality for lesser entry point of the money, and you have a greater appreciation of your capital,
Yeah.
as well as the success of the horse. And if a rider is tied into the success of the horse, most dressage riders are not financially driven, but they're success driven. So those horses will stay on and they'll find a way to buy.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we're really, we talk about like the speed dating process of trying to find horses there is you can, I always say it's we talk about 1 or 2 20-minute trials and 20-minute clinical exam. And you have, especially for somebody that has limited capacity in terms of the shots that they can take on horses there, that's a lot of risk to put in one place there.
Absolutely. And again, you're diluting the risk, but doubling the fun. And the exciting thing is there is a dream that there one day will see a profit, will
Yeah.
see a dividend. And if the fund is structured correctly, which you have tax implications, which helps the cause, you have depreciation, you have stepped up uh, issues, which I think makes total sense. It's the right time to bring in our dressage friends to enjoy the journey.
Yeah. I'm excited for it there. I think it's, we go back to is if we can, one of the things that we have in the fund is we can offer the riders that they have the opportunity to have the horse secured long term on their behalf for 150% of the principal purchase. So you have a group of, hopefully it's pooling resources between board members, riders to find horses at good value, match them to the right riders where we say real value is created in the horse, and then that they can have the horse secured on their behalf. But to have a 6-month trial of living with the horse and understanding the horse prove itself to you, you prove yourself on that horse to a potential owner or a syndicate that you can put together through the connections of the fund but it's a much more realistic path. But it's the other way around it.
Absolutely. And I think they already know before they get in the door what the upsell is, so they have a very clear idea. And the horse becomes a known quantity. If a horse lives with you for 6 months, you know inside out
Yeah.
what the horse is capable of, what the downside of the horse is, and what the upside of the horse
Yeah.
is.
So to pivot a little bit about the duty of force, as you say, you give horses wins, but you also give a lot of knowledge in this because there are when you talk to somebody who knows horses lightly, there you say there's a competition that's going to take place in Aachen, Germany, and then there's one that's going to take place in Calgary, just throughout some the Rolex Grand Slam. And I think too many guys, they have no idea how horses move. Number one, but so you have the incredible amount of knowledge that you can share. I think there's something that on a very simple level is what does that look like?
Well, on any given day, we are moving horses around the world 4 days a week. We put about 6,000 plus horses a year in the air.
Unbelievable.
Uh, I'm very grateful that I have the most amazing team, my colleagues that are with me, and they are the ultimate horsewomen and understand the business. So we could be like this week, we could be in Shanghai, we were in Mexico, we were in Kentucky. Those horses just arrived in Prestwick, Scotland this morning after they did the Land Rover Kentucky. Whether it's dressage, whether it's show jumping, whether it's eventing, whether it's polo, whether it's endurance, we give horses wings.
It's really neat. And so, and I, besides just moving the horses, when I get on an airplane, I have to have my passport and I have to have there's some countries where individuals need a visa to go there. Now, what you deal with in terms of the layers, and this is where I think the experience of the Dutta Corp is unmatched in terms of moving horses around the country and the world. But
We're very blessed. We've got multiple 7 Olympic Games underneath, World Equestrian Games since 1990 when it started. Pan American Games, I think I've done 11 of them. Uh, Global Champions Tour since its inception when Gene Mish invited them. First time we brought 98 horses to jump in the grass in Wellington. And I took Jan to his Olympic Games in 92 in Barcelona, the horse called Top Gun. So we've got vast experience. We bring logistics support to the organizing committee. We help them in the back of the house. We are a one-stop shop. And so we help. I've worked for the U.S. Equestrian Team as their official shipping company since 1996. It's a long relationship since Atlanta. And we take care of the 3 Olympic disciplines and para. And the most amazing satisfaction is when our American athletes win at global stage, when they are number one in the world. We had couple of months ago, we had eventing number one and Kent leading the charge number one in show jumping, which doesn't happen often.
yeah,
It was a great satisfaction to see Will Coleman win Sunday. I've known Will since he's 9 years old. I've taken care of his father's courses. So it's a very, very long relationship. And same thing with Dammy for California. Uh, so it's great to see Kent win. Yeah, and Dallas Fort Worth, he gave a master series of riding class, and then of course Katie Diamond. Since she came into the sport, I've had the good fortune of shipping her around the world. To see her come forward with a brilliant horse, it was amazing.
yeah. No, that's it. And so you ship these horses around, but you talk about the logistics support of it. I had a rider that's reached out to us this year that wanted to come and move his horses here from Cape Town. And then you've helped us move horses from Mexico to the States and from and from Europe to the States there. And the what needs to take, if I want to glide on myself, I can get on a plane and put my luggage on the plane and I show up and you go through customs and you go right out to your destination. But the horses, it's a different story. And how
It just depends on where you're going or where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Of course, you have health requirements. So we deal with the country of origin or destination's
Yeah.
government. You have customs. Lately, with the tariffs being imposed, it's used to be horses were livestock and duty free.
Mm-hmm.
They are now have tariffs, so we have to figure out the cost on that. It's can be complicated. we've just been around the block long enough for us.
Business as usual. It's different out there.
Uh, People get it's not that complicated, but it is complicated, and we just know the process, and every part of the world is different than the others. Like it could be as simple as, like, for example, Mexico. You cannot take your favorite shampoo. You cannot take your cream that you use to put underneath the boots. Uh, you couldn't take your laser that the horses used to.
Yeah.
You couldn't take something like an aspirin. It's certain countries, they won't allow you to take wooden brushes because of disease and worms that have been there. So you have to take, for example, Chile or Peru, where we are going back to the Pan American Games next year. You cannot take anything wooden. So our old USET wooden tack trunks are not allowed. You have to go into Stanley's. Things like that. The little
Never even thought about that.
some countries allow you to bring your feed, so there's a easier transition to these horses. Some countries don't allow you to do that, so we have to locally source. And the feed companies have become such professionals that they tell us which is the closest feed that's available by what brand and what part of the world, so we can make those transitions easier. Uh, we had Saudi Arabia, where we visited for the last World Cup, and that requires visa for grooms and riders and our support staff and our well-wishers and the owners, and that takes a little bit of time. For example, if you go to Shanghai for the Global Champions Tour, we need visas, and it's a very complicated process of importing the horses, even though it's in a bubble where those horses have the same requirements like we're going to Arcot, but they're in China. So that took years to develop.
Yeah.
And when we did Hong Kong in 2008, the Olympic Games there, we established a disease-free zone. So that transitioned into Shanghai. So it depends on where the sport is.
Yeah.
But we have had vast experience that we can manage these issues. And usually we have lead time to deal with these issues, and we find a solution. That's what I get paid for.
That's solution oriented. You helped us a couple. 2 years ago, I had one student that was on a Nations Cup tour over in Europe. So we flew from the States, went to Europe. We wanted to go straight to Calgary.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to, so you have the logistical the logistics side of it there, but then you have to think about the horses and what's best for the horses.
Absolutely.
Everything always comes down to that there. And so now we're basically, doing US to Europe, Europe to Canada, Canada back to the US, and that's where I think your team has it's such a wealth of knowledge that the experience of this, because there's, I think, to expect the number one rider in the world or the top trainer in the world to understand all of these details and requirements. You're the best CEO if you surround yourself with the right people that help you on that. And I think what you have,
I have the very best team in the world, and I'm very proud of them. Each one of them brings excellence to the table. And our whole motto is very simple. If we do the right thing for the horse, we have job security. So horses come first, grooms come second, and then we do what's right for the owner.
Yeah.
And if we can keep doing that, we've been in it for 38 years. I think the next 30 years will be good for us.
And so many of your employees have been long-time industry professionals and working with the horses, and so it's really neat to see you make a phone call and who's on, that somebody that's now and long-time employees of yours. But I think that horse people that are making the decisions and helping that is so.
My key management has been with me over 23 years.
Yeah.
The six of them, which is a testament to them believing in the company and the ethos and who we are and what we work for. And we're extremely grateful uh, for our very long-term clients. I've worked for McLean since he's 12 years old. So it's a long journey together.
So you told me something in a meeting there, and this is just a small bit. This was an example of the wealth of knowledge that you have in this. And I think where a lot of individuals get stuck, I think that I say a lot of for me, the decision-making process when it comes to working with horses, working with riders, now working with the fund there, that's quite easy for me. The logistics side of it there, of how now the execution there is where some of the real questions lie. And we were talking about just flights domestically here, and you told me that a FedEx, if you're gonna fly a horse through FedEx in the US there, that's the exact same price no matter if you're flying from California to New York or if you're flying from Indianapolis to Seattle.
Yes, FedEx has this amazing pricing structure that they don't calculate fuel burn and distance. They calculate how they fill the plane.
Yeah.
The volume of the plane is what they're interested in. And they price a horse based on its weight and volume, just like a single overnight mail. So the rate structure for a horse is overnight mail. That's how we fill out the air bill.
That's, and I just go back to how many people are thinking it's going to cost more to fly, a longer distance there, but so they would look into driving the horse, for that matter. And now you go back to what's best for the horse there, and that is not always distance to cost that it can be. So it's about how do we get the horse there so that they can perform their absolute best. And maybe there's like I one time we flew from Vancouver to New York for the horse show the following week, and it's it's putting the logistics together of the demanding competitions.
Well, California is a 4-day trip from Wellington,
Yeah.
on an average. And the risk that the horses have to go through, even though you use the very best of the best, the industry standard for me is Johnson Horse Transportation. He writes what this level of excellence is. But the horse is on the road for 4 days. You don't know what you're going to get. Do they get sick? Do they get a shipping fever? Do they get cut? Do they get hydrated? Is there an accident? Did someone rear end the truck, or the truck flip over, or there is weather coming? Whereas on a plane from Fort Lauderdale to Santa Anita, you're 9.5 hours from the time you leave your barn till you are at the other barn. So risk, my main job is when I work for clients is risk mitigation, to make sure the horses get from point A to point B as less stress as possible, as hydrated as possible, with all their daily routine intact.
Yeah.
So once we do that, I have done my job. Now it's up to the groom, the rider, the manager to figure out the next step.
Yeah.
But flying horses across is the way to go. It's not the most cost-effective way, but given today's diesel prices, we're talking $1,500 difference between driving a horse by truck in a box stall, versus flying in a stall and a half to California.
Well, and I go back to when you think about this, or you think about the value of these horses, and you think about how the horse's value can be affected so drastically by the next competition.
Andrew,
prize money is available. Why would
it makes no sense to
Yeah.
put them on a truck, but I do understand why people put them on a truck. But for example, if a horse arrives in Wellington, has a chipping fever,
Mhm.
by the time Palm Beach Equine or Rudin comes and deals with it for 3 days, the money you saved is gone. The first half hour of the bet is here. And that's if the horse can perform next week.
Yeah, and the difference that they're a bit tired up the truck there, and that's the difference of having 4 faults, and that was the difference of a significant amount of prize money, or the significant value difference in the horse there. I mean, the word I would say, horses can have explosive valuation changes because of the most recent competition. So whether it's from a sport perspective and just if it's the matter of one rail versus I always say there are certain ways that you need to be very cost efficient there. But I think in terms of it's the care for the horses, the grooms who look after them, the feet,
No.
and the travel. Those are the 3 places that you should never cut the corners on a horse.
I always say, do what's right for you. Everybody has their own the barometer of what's right. But if you have a choice, especially if you're competing, and most show jumpers like to go as close to the vet check as possible.
Yes.
So if the vet check is on Wednesday morning, most of our clients want to arrive Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
And you have literally 12 hours of no room to make a mistake, whether it is medication, whether it's the horse spiking in temperature, or like you said, getting there and not feeling up, or being back sore, and they're not fit. You just wasted your time, money, and energy and dreams
Yeah.
to go all the way out and lose a week.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a small difference maker there.
Yeah. And like you said, the valuation today on horses winning a class versus having 3 down is a big difference.
Yeah.
It's the same horse.
I mean, well, how that could affect something down the road for as they're counting statistics now for the average balls for a team down the road, or there's so many implications that can go on in there.
Yeah.
That's it. So to finish up here, it take me inside. If then this is more for as we're really trying to educate people around the industry here. Take me inside the day of a horse. It's flying. What does that look like?
So what we try to do is not change anything that it doesn't do.
Yeah.
So we communicate with the grooms and barn manager. Hydration, very important.
Yeah.
2 days before, bran mash, electrolytes, salt, make sure the horse is hydrated, in good health. Speak to your veterinarian. Some veterinarians will put them on a medication regime, whether it's antibiotics, whether it is muscle relaxer, whether it is hydration therapy, whether it is calmers, gastric buffers. Most of our horses, sport horses, have some form of gastric buffer, whether it's in their feed, whether it's some setup, whether it's succeed, whether it is medication, whether it is ulcer guard, gastro guard, etc. Then we communicate what time we're picking them up. Ship the horses like you usually ship. We don't like to change anything. If you like to ship with boots, we prefer boots. If you like to ship with fly mask, we ship with fly mask. If they need bandages, we ask them to put proper bandages. Our grooms have obviously trained enough. If the bandage gets loose coming off, if you like bell boots, horse has bar shoes on, or trailers, put bell boots on. If your horse sits on its ass and has beautiful tail, put tail rubs on.
Yeah.
And if we think it's restricting, we'll take the tail rub off.
Yeah.
Then they get to the airport. Our pro grooms on the flight discusses again with your groom or with the truck driver how it arrived. We check for a little things like, is it comfortable? It looks bright and alert. Has it been nipping on its hay? Has it passed manure? Even if it's a small ride, usually we want to see it. And the quality of the manure, is it runny? Is it dry? Is it that gives us an indication. And then we always see the size of the horse. So there's a low side and a high side on the plane, depending on where the stalls are. If the horse is tall, we automatically try to give it on the high side, so it's got much more room in case it's head shy or lifts it. Then we place it into the container. It goes on to the airplane. We very rarely medicate unless the horse needs tranquilizer or we've been notified. Some horses, if they're not competing FEI, or even a national show, the owners would say you would give it a little bit of tranquilizer because it makes their life much easier and they settle down, especially first-time flyers. If we don't have first-time flyers, they're known in our system. We know these horses, they go back and forth. For them, it's like going to Triumph. They're happy. And once the plane flies, we keep the temperature cold. We try to keep it between 65 and 67 degrees. So the air is going, so they don't warm up, so they don't sweat. If it gets cold, we'll put their sheet on. If it is nice, and if we're not wearing a jumper, we don't put a sheet on.
Yeah.
We are putting a jumper on or a sweater or a jacket. The horse gets a sheet. That's usually our barometer. And once they arrive, we get them to their local trucks. If it's a championships, our grooms follow it to the stables. If it's not a championships, then we say goodbye to the horse and make sure they travel with the kit bag or they're traveling with trunks. Make sure they get there exactly what's on the manifest. And if there is feed left over, we write instructions. And if we medicated, we tell them what we medicated, how much we medicated, and why. If they didn't drink water, we tell them that. If they drank water, we tell them that. Usually we use salt-based electrolytes on our flights. If the owner or the managers or the trainers wants to use something else, we pick it up and dispense as given.
Well, one of the questions I ask the most there is how do So when somebody asks how a horse is flying, how from your experience, how much does the disposition of a horse change from how much does the disposition of a horse change once they're already loaded up to once when the plane is taking off? If they're usually pretty good once when they're loading, are they normally very relaxed throughout the flight then?
Yes and no. Horses are like us. Some fall asleep before you leave the gate,
Yeah,
and some are worried and they need the rosary beads till they land and they're getting off their seat.
yeah,
And some horses are internal. Those are the ones that we need to worry about.
yeah,
Some horses are explosive because they have sound, and then we have earmuffs.
yeah,
So we again tried this discussion with your grooms. If you like to send your horses with a bonnet that has noise canceling, we love it. If not, we had it and we put it off.
okay,
Some horses head shape because they never had a bonnet. Then we just stuck the ears because the starting the engines is very similar like a tractor trailer moving around. They don't know what the whine is because they don't see.
yeah,
On cruise, we lower the lights. We try to bring them to their stables. And at 40,000 feet, unless there's turbulence, they don't know. And that's when our grooms will go to see them extend their lead ropes and lower their water bucket. So we force them to stretch their back. It's very important. Nasal discharge is one of the primary reasons horses get sick. They have bacteria, they get the moisture not coming through, they have warm, and if their nasal discharge doesn't go down, if it goes into the lungs, and 6 hours after they arrive, we've got 103 temperature.
that's why there's no to it.
Yeah. So we ship with wet hay, kosher salt, so that forces them to drink water. If they don't drink water, we'll put Gatorade or apple juice.
Yeah,
The easiest way for them, because sometimes when we have water from airport FPOs, there's sulfur.
yeah,
It's one of the reason we always load up water at your stable and your hay. It's not to save money for us, but to not change anything for the horse's sake.
yeah,
And dust, that really helps them. So we wet the hay. That forces them with a little bit of salt, just forces them to chew and get them to drink. And if they drink once or twice between here and California, you're fine.
yeah. That's why we want you as our official flight partner. Here, we have valuable horses we're moving around. So Tim, thank you so much for
Thank you, Andrew, for this opportunity to visit with you and your team. It's been my pleasure.